Do you not think that this podcast has the ability to redirect people's attention back to themselves and back to the places which they are?
If this was the last episode, maybe, I was initiated into Druidry, not to recreate the past, not to become like an ancient, Druid type person. I was interested in it because it was a contemporary, nature-based, environmental spirituality. I first joined the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids in the winter of 96, 97, around that time. When I met the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids, it was this really creative, vibrant, heart-centred, wise tradition with elders that I respected. And
have you seen a rise of maybe my generation getting more of an interest in shamanic traditions?
Yeah, that's really refreshing. It's great to see, and I think it's things like Medicine Festival and
podcasts. I'd like to know, actually, if this was the last podcast ever, what messages would you like to leave people with? At Medicine Festival, when you opened, I remember you saying, before any work can be done, we must have peace.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to understand why.
Oh, well, that's for you to understand, isn't it? Like peace is a symbol in a way, is it? And it's a tradition. It's a Druidic tradition. Ceremonies begin with a question, and sometimes even, is it peace? Do we have peace right now here? And let us ask ourselves, are we at peace? And, are you and I quarrelling? And, do we have any beef or bones to pick? Chips on our shoulders, thorns in our sides, hidden agendas, all those things.
Yeah.
Is there peace? And then their peace is kind of called, it's called a call for peace. But that call for peace begins with a statement saying, let us call for peace, for without peace no work can be. And it's a way of grounding, cleansing, finding that heart space, that sort of just little moment of grace, to then sort of leave all disturbing thoughts and stuff aside, just for the moment, to then step into a more sort of ceremonial space, I suppose.
Yeah, it makes me feel we can't have world peace as long as people are at war with themselves. So it kind of has the same flavour to it.
Well, I mean, can we have world peace? Who knows? But we strive for it. It's the most ancient wish, and even the most peaceful person, on one level, their whole immune system is at war with all the alien substances that are coming into contact with their organism. So there's many layers of what peace is, aren't there? And peace of mind. Peace could mean no war. Peace could mean calm. Could mean silence. Could mean many different things.
I like the invitation there. It's the question to inquire into what does that even look like right now, and it allows you to come into the moment to experience. Okay, is there peace here? Yeah,
and also, helps you consider the gratitude for, art being present and the ability to be able to talk about whatever we want to talk about, and the freedom of expression, creativity. Wars are. But the gratitude for us right now is that wars are distant. We have children on the sofa, fed and clothed. We have a roof above our heads, and immediate rumblings of the mechanisms of war right outside the door. Sort of touch wood. That's happening right now. So there's a gratitude for peace, but also the call for peace. Then is like a prayer for peace as well. Like we call for peace in the north. And then the person moves to the south, calls for peace in the south. It comes from an old Welsh prayer originally. A lot of the old gorseths, as we say in the Druidic tradition, the gatherings of bards, were originally sort of formed in a Welsh ceremony during the reformation of the Druidic sort of gatherings. And then peace is called in the west and in the east. So one enters through the west and sort of goes around the central altar, which might be a fire, could be anything, and then ends up in the east, making it so the circle is crossed with this kind of proclamation, affirmation that we have peace. And There's a sort of stillness that, is words are powerful things, aren't they? Especially in ceremony, they may be thrice as powerful as they normally are, because we're hoping for something, aren't we? In a ceremony, there's a kind of anticipation of, or letting go of everyday concerns and what we're going to have for lunch and whether there's enough fuel in the car, whatever, all those things. And so there's a invitation to be peaceful, and but also a prayer to the world, and whatever your mindset, there's something in a wish and in a prayer, whether you're a scientist or a sorcerer or whatever your faith or folly. I think people just, there's something in it, isn't there?
Has ceremony been a part of your life since you can remember?
No, it hasn't. Not really.
Wow, you had a birthday, right? Is that kind of a ceremony?
Yeah, it was a ritual. I guess it is. Yeah, ceremony is.
It's interesting.
Making a cup of tea, having breakfast. Yeah.
I was thinking this on the way. I was like, what ceremonies did I really grow up in? And it's the ceremony around blowing the candles out on your birthday cake.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, well, if anyone blew the candles out before the song was sung, it would be rude. It would be like unlucky, jarring.
Yeah.
Unlucky.
Yeah.
Well, it would be unlucky if you speak the wish. So that's kind of also a part of like a ceremony that I was definitely a part of growing up, and no one really knows why. It's just something we do, and that comes onto the perspectives that we have about certain things that go on that are just indoctrinated or conditioned to be a way.
Yeah.
So I thought that was quite interesting. I was thinking of that on the way. So ceremony, tell us about your kind of, back in the day, and what was it like growing up for you? I'd love to know a bit more about your story.
My parents weren't really religious, and my grandparents weren't noticeably religious. I think the most religious person I knew growing up was my dad's aunt. She had a Bible, and we didn't see her that often, but my dad would tell us, she's a Christian sort of thing. So we sort of, when we'd be around her, we knew that she was religious, and we hardly went to church. I think I went to church 2 or 3 times for like a sort of Christmas Eve sing-song in my childhood, and weddings and funerals. So those were the sort of religious, that was a kind of religious moments. But every single year, my mother's parents, I spent a lot of time with them. My brother he had ear problems all through childhood, and so he's in hospital a lot. My mum would stay with him, my dad would be working, I'd go and live with my grandparents, and I think those formative years just gave me that love of wood and brass and polished floors and organic food and growing and orchards and that kind of that older generation. I don't know. And my grandfather, he was a funny old stick from the Chiltern Hills, high up in near Penn, which is Celtic for head. It's a big high up place in the Chiltern Hills. He all year long he would prepare this bonfire, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger throughout the year. And coming towards sort of Halloween, me and my brother would climb ladders, and he'd send us up it to go and sort of trample it down. And then on bonfire night, these are the most magnificent sort of childhood memories of ceremony. Every bonfire night we'd go there, and it would be lit, and it would be just family there, uncles and home brews would come out the kind of deepest sort of archives of his sort of cherry smoke flavoured home that had been bubbling away all through the year, and they'd be drunk around the fire, and we as kids would sort of look at them and sort of grow up around all this old-fashioned stuff, and home produce, and growing his own food. And my Welsh grandmother would be sort of harvesting sort of mushrooms and spinning away and dyeing clothes and knitting and making macrame. There's some sort of old retired folks just doing all these natural things.
I think we can associate that with our grandparents a lot more than parents, even my generation. So the parents, my parents, baby boomers, they were busier. They had a lot more going on. They were kind of making their earning by working away a lot, and lots of that happened. You go to the grandparents, and they would definitely have a slower pace, not just because they were older, but they were more kind of in touch with the garden and the the pantry and
they've gone through the sort of war years and
Mm.
perhaps knew the garden out of necessity and growing food, and then maybe,
For sure.
maybe
so
that
no
thing.
Druidry featured in those years.
They were sort of when they weren't religious. So this is what I'm sort of getting onto is I wasn't initiated. What's the word? Confirmed or christened.
Mhm.
You know, none of that happened. So I grew up unshackled from religion, if you like, unshackled from the dogma,
Mhm.
from the traditions, from the ceremonies, but we had these folk customs like the lighting of the fire and the home brews, and all around the orchard there were hanging sort of deer skulls, and there were, you know, little charms and things about, and the spinning and the crafts and the weaving, and there was like a underlying mystical element to my childhood.
Mm.
And my mother was is sort of quite superstitious and psychic. She's got like a psychic nature to her. My father's, you know, just a really good-hearted, fair, dependable, good man. You know, and so there's a sort of, but where they bonded, where my parents bonded, was gardening. That's what they would. That was one of their loves. So it's like a love of nature in all of that as well.
Yeah.
And when my brother and I first went to ever visit, you know, every time we'd go up to the orchard, you know, sort of grandparents' orchard, the first thing we'd do was just go for a walk around the orchard and past the fox's hole, and climb the cherry trees and up and down the ladders and round the wild bit at the bottom, and then come back up, and then we'd wander into the house, you know, past the ponds. And it was a good childhood up in the Chiltern Hills, surrounded by woodland.
Sounds like a storybook.
Sounds
idyllic.
Not a perfect childhood, you know.
What were
but there were some great moments.
I'm called to ask, were any parts of all of that, the mysticism, did any parts of it you reject? Were there any, because it's often in our teens or as we grow up and we socialise with other kids, were there any parts of you look back and were thinking, like, that's not for me, or, you know, like the kind of the hero's journey of rejecting parts of something that you might not agree with, or the rebellious nature maybe?
My parents were quite conventional, you know. They were, I was going to say smartly dressed then, but, you know, I mean, they did a lot of household cleaning all the time, you know, which is great. It was, it's a good habit, isn't it? You know, and,
Absolutely.
but I think I kind of rejected that a bit. I got to this kind of long-haired, scruffy mode in my life.
I think we'll go through that.
I just became, you know, I got really curly hair, and sometimes I'd be sent home from school for just having messy hair. You know, so I kind of maybe part of my young self sort of held onto that and just grew my hair even longer. A friend of mine gave me like a cassette of like Iron Maiden and Metallica, and you know, so I got into heavy metal quite a young age when I first went to secondary school, and then adopted that sort of long-haired heavy metal sort of persona. And then that neatly sort of transferred to acid house. So it's the long-haired metal kid became the long-haired, you know, acid house devotee, if you like, in the early sort of acid house days. And I was sort of out and about on these different raves at the weekend, and this fringe grew over my face, and I got quite introverted, I think. And
why do you think that was?
Who knows? I had a wildness about me. I remember that when I first went to secondary school, there was something happened. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I wouldn't say I was a bit of a bully, but I was. I know, you know, I was small and thin, and I was, you know, wasn't that strong. But people were scared of me because I had a wildness. And my brother was in the year above me, and all his mates were a little bit scared of me because if they, you know, you first arrive at secondary school when you sort of you run the gauntlet. You're in all your new clothes that are a bit ill-fitting, and when it's this first year, you walk down the corridor, and it's an all-boys school, and you just get kicked and pushed and and you get teased and bullied, and I just, you know, answered back, maybe punched back, you know, that sort of stuff. So people saw that something wild in me or something, and I just kind of picked that up and ran with it, I think, because it got me some attention or something like that.
Yeah, it kind of develops a safety.
Yeah,
you know, it's a protection.
Yeah. And then, so I was put in the rugby team, and
Mm-hmm.
and I could run as well, so I was always put in the 100 metres at school. But there's this wildness then sort of grew around me as this fringe, and I just sort of introverted a bit into the arts, and that's what I was good at. I was good at drawing.
Mm.
I was quite creative. Ended up doing A-levels in physics, history and art, because that's what I enjoyed, and ended up going to art college, and so I became this weirdo, but with some sort of meaty respect, because I had a little bit of a wild edge, and people were, and all the slightly more intelligent kids than me would be the ones that would be sort of like the kind of I'm thinking of that book, when there's that big massive American dude and the little kind of smart guy who's always running the show, Of Mice and Men.
Lenny and
so I was a bit like the kind of
the
the sort of puppet, and then all the smart kids was like, Chris, go over and headbutt that guy over there, or whatever, and I just go and do it because it got me some respect and attention,
very similar story.
But also I got respect from the teachers, because I was genuinely interested in the arts. I was genuinely interested in history and learning, and academic, and I was bright. I wasn't that dense, but I did get respect from the teachers too, especially if I used to hang out on the naughty table. But if someone was really naughty, I'd maybe put them in place or something like that, and so there was all that going on in my childhood, and then I got into metal, and then I got into acid house, and then I was suddenly in another world, but really creative, and that all fueled the arts, and through the arts I got into magic. It's a simple story. We were encouraged, as A-level art students, to think about what art is, where does it come from, and the first page of those big old art books, it's like cave paintings, and you're learning about magic and sympathetic magic and shamanistic cultures and all that stuff, and I soon realised, all art is magic in essence. Every single art form casts a spell, doesn't it? And today the most malicious kind of art form, maybe not the most malicious, but I suppose the most selfish kind of art form, is like marketing and advertising.
Sure.
And it's repetition and sigil and colour
games.
and rhetoric and all that kind of stuff to control the consumer to do something they wouldn't normally do. So it's like magic that's casting a spell on you to spend or subscribe or do whatever. So subscribe to this podcast. This is and all that sort of stuff. It's all
cast some magic.
It's all casting a spell, isn't it? Yeah.
Interesting. So when you realised this, how did you use that? Because understanding art, and it can be used as magic to get people's attention, or just as you described. Okay,
yeah. So what it helped me do, I suppose, it helped me realise that art that's aligned with Mother Nature is not just coming from one's own personal agenda to sell something, or because religions are even all the art and spells within religion, they're all asking people to subscribe to this particular mindset, this particular doctrine, aren't they? But the traditions that uphold Mother Nature and nature's ways have a much vaster taproot. That is not just about me trying to sell this album that I've just recorded, or trying to sell this book that I've just written, or trying to do what or
it's not as eye-centric, right? It's not as
So on this sliding scale of magic, you've got the kind of this kind of selfish sorcerers on one end, just self-empowerment and selling this and maybe economy rules under that, or whatever might be ruling that. And on the other end, you've got the complete devotee on the other end, which is, so there's this kind of complete sliding scale of how and who might be working the magic, I suppose. And then I guess most artists are somewhere in the middle, I don't know, because you want to sell your work and you want to be successful, but you also want well, I don't know. Whatever you want. What do you want? You know. But
well, what did you want at the time?
I was wanting. Yeah, I was feeling a great awareness of environmental needs. You know, being born into this clinical light of a highly mechanized world, I soon realised that we all yearn to be
maybe through
in nature. You know, look at us now. We're surrounded by mechanism just so that we can, you know, also you can do your job. You know, and people can listen to this and look at this. You know, and part of that makes me sad. I feel sad about that. And but then
I'm sure I could change your mind.
I don't know if you could.
Really interesting. Well, I think where we're at,
you could change my mind, but you couldn't change my heart. You know, it would. My mind would wander again, and that sadness would come back about all this mechanism we surround ourselves with, just to feel like we're valid within community and the world of work and occupation and service and all those things. You know, it's. I was so saddened by flying, you know, as well, and I try not to. I hardly fly. You know, I've made pledges at one point in my youth not to fly, and I hardly do it. But I do drive, you know, and I eat a bit of meat now and again. I'm not the most perfect ethical person in the world. I suppose I did end up in a vegan housing cooperative, turning an old dairy farm in Wales into an organic permacultural project, and you know, Roger Hallam was there, and we were Izzy at the time, and an old college friend Merlin, and there was this kind of real strong ethic to be vegan and not to drive, and maybe I'm slightly scarred from that. Maybe I was ethically bullied or something, you know. But of course the heart says, gosh, you know, well, every time one flies, there's this aviation fuel spilling out of a plane, you know, one long haul flight to New Zealand and back, and you've used more carbon in that one trip than an average African would in their whole lifetime, you know. And I have a choice, you know. And that saddens me that people maybe don't make that choice, and I feel sympathetic to ones who have family far flung over the world, you know, and the heartstrings that pull you to different places. I feel sympathetic to like indigenous people who's might be oppressed by colonialism or corporate money spinning, and then feel the need to fly over the world and their voice to be heard louder. But I think, you know, and what really I don't know, maybe this is my axe to grind, but you know, I'm saddened by people that sort of fly in Mother Nature's name, if you like, and perhaps thinking that, I don't know, I'm
which
being
is
really judgmental now.
Well, no, it's good to dive into, right?
Yeah,
that's what I want to talk about, really. Right. These ideas and these ways that we're living now, and that's like the heart of the podcast. It's to evaluate and deepen our connection to Mother Nature. Is it? Yeah.
Is that the nature of this podcast?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Switch off now. Turn off now. You don't need to listen to Chris. You don't need to listen to me. You just need to get out there. Mother Nature is the primary source, and will teach you everything you ever need to know. This is just distraction. You know, it might help you feel a bit better, but it's ultimately, anytime you're looking at a screen, you say it is not nourishing. You know, you might feel nourished in moments, but it's like fucking sugar
compared to the honey at a screen that's out there.
You know, it's like boom, boom, boom. There's no nourishment in.
But we live in these systems now, right?
Do we?
We do.
Do we?
I believe so. Yeah. I believe a lot of us do live in a system that it's very hard for people to. Sure, they go for a walk outside, but a lot of people, over 90% of the country live in urban environments. Okay. So people live in systems. Yeah. They live in flats. They live in concrete jungles, which they are quite removed.
Systems can be beautiful. You know, systems can be organic.
Sure.
But and we live in, this is a system that we live in most of the time, flesh and blood. You know, and I guess you don't have to head outdoors to find nature, because we've got it in the rhythm of our breathing and our temperature and the muscles in whatever state of tension and relaxation they might be in, and the heartbeat and eyes that we can look at. So I'm always
the only time I get to look at someone's eyes when I record a podcast.
Is when you record a podcast.
Yeah. It's like we have an hour of
yeah
devotion of eye gazing.
Well, let's just get rid of the mechanism and have a hug, and we could do some eye gazing
for an hour. You'd be up for that.
And then how would the kids learn from that? I mean, they model our behaviour so much, and I'm not on my phone as much as Bonnie is, who's sat here, not on her phone, listening to us right now, which is great because they're engaged and. So, I feel even sadder for the younger generations.
Absolutely.
And you're younger than me, and then my children are younger than me, and and they don't have iPads or TV here. They do other places, but Bonnie's got a phone now, and they are so addictive. I'm addicted to mine. Fair play, hands up. If I'm here alone and the kids aren't here, or even when the kids are here, I try and turn all the notifications off. But in those moments, I just reach to the phone.
There's a good app that I found out yesterday that makes your smartphone into a basic black and white screen. So there's no less visuals. Okay. So it's like a real basic phone that you can just add the app on, and it makes it a little bit simpler and less addictive, I'm sure. But yeah, I'd love to. Let's dive into the. Do you not think that this podcast has the ability to redirect people's attention back to themselves and back to the places which they are? Because it did that.
If this was the last episode, maybe but you're going to want them to listen to the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one. All you really need to know is that everything you ever need is in here and right under your feet, and that every time you're looking at a screen, you could be looking in the eyes of one of your children, one of your family members, one of your pets, and enjoying the garden. There's this lovely old saying, wonderful saying, is that if you want to be, and we could even recreate this saying. If you want to be happy for a minute, pick up your phone and open that app. If you want to be happy for an hour, get drunk. If you want to be happy for a night, get into bed with someone. If you want to be happy for and tickle them, and if you want to be happy for a year, get married. If you want to be happy for life, get a garden.
Love that.
I said that to some people recently, and Satish Kumar was there, and he said, "Oh, I married a gardener," sort of beaming away. Sort of thing. So, then there you have it. So you get and then all those things, apart from the phone, could be there, couldn't they? Sorry, Chris.
Information.
This is just my own.
I
personal
genuinely love
technology.
what you're saying. I am so on board with what you're saying.
But we're enrolled in it, aren't we? And as you said, we're in these systems, and we've all got phones, and they help us with our work and our entertainment. And
I'm not saying I'm not sat here going to convince you that then fighting for the podcast corner, but I think it's fascinating to dive into that as a thing. It's like, well, do we really need more podcasts? I fight with this. I fight with the content creation. I fight with every time that I'm diving into other podcasts to see how people are doing, etc. And I'm in that space. But then I catch myself in this duality of, do we need more things? Am I just contributing to the thing? I'm not trying to imbue that with what I'm doing, but I'm adding to it. I'm adding to already over.
Even books. I went through a phase of my life where I was like anti-text. Because even text abstracts us from the world. It
does.
So right now you're on a screen. All these people that are listening and watching, they're abstracted from
their environment,
from their sensual, organic environment.
Sure.
And wherever they might be, that sensual, organic environment could just be your own body, but you are abstracted from it now into this screen, into these artificial lights and this artificial sound. And even books do that. Even text, as that simple text, has been doing that for a long time, which is magic. Text and spelling, it's magic, and it's sigils and it's wonderful stuff. But it's consumed us, and whenever we're in a book, we're not here. We're with the novel in the fantasy world, or we're with the the non-fiction book in whatever we might be learning about, and but we're not here, and it can be, I love books, they're great insulation, and it can be really inspiring, but at some point in your life, you've maybe had enough input.
That's true. And
you found your unswerving sense of purpose, that more than you could ever need in one lifetime, and then step outside and get on with it.
Absolutely. I think it does create community, though. That's what I'm finding, and that's what I'm understanding is the common thread, essentially, in our times of separation, or not just separation. We cannot be separated only by our words, but we are distant from those. You mentioned, is what you need to do is look into the eyes of your family, and sometimes that sounds easy, but it's harder to do. It's harder to be met there if you haven't got that around you. So it's bringing people closer with others who are ready for that and have understood that that's
I see what you mean. So we've mechanised and artificed our way into this mess, so we've got to sort of mechanise our way out of it.
Well,
like you said the only time you ever look in people's eyes, I'm sure that's not true, but it's
not true, but for an hour.
There's a quality engagement here, isn't it?
Therapeutic space. It's beautiful to really get to know someone. Forget all this. This is just the tools to get someone in this position that otherwise wouldn't give me their time. Yeah,
and I can hear Druid elders now sort of tutting at me and say, Chris, you have to accept the spirit of this time. This is the spirit of this time. And I can hear them and see them. They're there, and maybe I don't accept the spirit, or I'm looking to something else, or there's just or I don't really feel like I'm of this time somehow. Growing up, I didn't really feel like I was part of culture. I felt like I was part of the landscape and part of nature, and it's been part of my personal journey to sort of marry culture and nature and become healthy in that way, and sort of socially healthy. And I feel like technology, what happened, there was a time when I suddenly found myself, well, I didn't suddenly find myself, so I found myself living in Iron Age roundhouses with thatched roof, wattle and door, cooking on fires with a community of people, milking goats in the morning, keeping the fires going, grinding wheat into flour, educating kids. Amazing lifestyle, I didn't want to leave and did it for 7 weeks. And it's a bit like, living in the past, come on, be here now. But it really taught me a lot how comfortable we can be just with what Mother Nature provides, and what's in and it didn't go anywhere for 7 weeks. Didn't get in a car for 7 weeks. Didn't travel anywhere in a machine for 7 weeks. And it's blissful. There's so much. I mean, I'm. So why you feel like I'm just talking at you now?
No, not at all. I'm interested.
I'd
like to know, actually, if this was the last podcast ever, what messages would you like to leave people with?
It's okay, that podcasts are ending, and that's okay. Screens are all going to be cracked and turned off and discarded in the bin, and there'll be a tricky few weeks, but what you're going to get after that is going to be so much more nourishing. So much more nourishing. You're going to feel like you've finally come home, because you pick up the phone and it delights you, and it's sensational, and it delights your eyes, it delights your all the different stimulation. It's high stimulation, bright colours, noises, fast pace, and when you step into that, Iron Age village, ancient indigenous way of being in a circle around a fire and organic food, there's less stimulation. You'll notice all the different shades of grey in the sky on a cloudy day. You'll be out in the elements all the time. You'll never be looking at the world through a window. You'll be in the world. You always know the wind direction, smelling the weather, understanding when the fire needs feeding, making clothes, making food, making medicine, making community, song, dance, entertainment. Everything is in-sourced, and there's something really empowering and calming about that. It was lots of chaos as well. It's not idyllic. We do tend to sort of romanticize the past when the present is difficult and try and create that in the future. But there's something really soothing and grounding and healing about all of that, and there's something It's like that's honey. Like that is honey, and technology is sugar. It's really, I find that a really helpful analogy.
Mm-hmm.
And sugar's like high, sensational. You instantly want some more because it's not nutrition. There's no nutrition in it, but it spikes your heart and your brain chemicals and your gut flora and blah, 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 so you get it, and it's instantly habit forming. Like technology is instantly habit forming. Where's the honey in your life? That's what I would say. If this is the last podcast ever, then this is going to be difficult to kind of.
Do you think that's accessible to everyone?
Find the sugar.
Do you think it's accessible?
Yes,
it's
accessible
for everyone
you
to,
and me right now.
To grow their food, to make their clothes, these types of the experience that you had for those 7 weeks.
It's accessible right now. Even that. I mean that's cultural. But if we got rid of all this technology now, we could sit down and learn a song together. We could sit down and learn some music together. We could learn some martial arts. We could cook together. We could make love. There's all sorts of stuff that people can do together. There's so much more nourishing and organic and available and needs no mechanism whatsoever. And it's just a matter of but then I love my phone. It helps me with work and it gets me out of the house and into interesting projects and those kind of things. But of course that would happen. If this was the last.
What do you think it's
technological broadcast
take
in the world?
For people
to happen anyway?
What do you think it's going to take for people to really value those things again?
I guess what's that saying? Necessity is the mother of invention. It's like we're heading for the brick wall, and we've sort of taken our foot off the pedal, but we haven't put our feet on the brakes yet. And as if we ever will, we as a species we just consume and theorise and chat and this is like masturbation in a way, isn't it? We're here chatting away, isn't it great? We feel like we know some stuff, don't we? And we can chat and chat some more, and
but it's going to affect how I move in the world and what
is it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
It's a reflection. It's we're influenced by others. We only know ourselves through other people.
Yeah.
So our environment's important. So if I started hanging out with you for a week, things are going to change for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to see
but
things.
You're not hanging out with me for a week. You're
maybe they'll
making
happen.
a podcast and you're listening to a podcast.
Forget the podcast. But this is just a conversation, isn't it? It's time with you that I get to understand you more and the way you think and how that can help me primarily.
Yeah.
And then if it helps people, we're going to have the conversation anyway. Why not allow people to observe that and be a part of it?
Yeah,
it makes sense for me.
Well done, Chris. There's value.
I don't need the
work.
phrase. I just think
I'm facetious and like being devil's advocate, but it's
no, that's what makes for a great conversation.
It's crunchy and meaty, isn't it? It's interesting. I guess we're all having these thoughts as well. If I'm thinking it, everyone else is probably thinking it too.
I'd bet a lot of the people that listen to the podcast do, and they're torn also.
I'll never forget, there was I'm involved in this group called the Wisdom Keepers, and so I get to meet people from all over the world, different indigenous elders and things like that, and and you get to feel a little bit wise, because you're called a wisdom keeper or whatever. But actually, I feel guilty about that because I know that I'm not that wise and I can act as a fool a lot. And but through that group. I forget, I can't remember who it was, but I was on this WhatsApp group at some point and someone sent a video and there's a lovely, again, someone's put a lot of technology into it, made a wonderful video, a lovely magic spell, but it was, and it really opened my heart to the plight of Amazonian tribes. And it had this young woman in her feathers and all the tribal get-up saying, we are the forest. And I just thought, we are the phone. We are the screen that you're looking at now. That's what we are right now. That's what we are. And that really made me sad as well. And I thought, we are the subscription to that app. We're the subscription to that phone contract. We're this bit of technology with that bit of technology. And
do you think there's
and who are you really? And why are you really here? Is this really who you are?
I think it's a part of it. we're part. Everything that we do is a part of it. But there's many sides of that question, right? It's the persona or the innate spirit that you are.
And these are tools. I mean, these are simply tools, aren't they?
Yeah. Do you think there's any value?
I've got a prejudice. I am prejudiced, and maybe that's just something I might not get around in this lifetime. I'm prejudiced about the technology, and about the flying that people do. Maybe slightly envious of the flying that people do, but I don't. But I know that it's not for me anyway. And I have sort of just sunk my feet and immersed and versed myself in this landmass that I'm on. And the cultural folklore and the druidic stuff and the native wisdom traditions and music and stories of Britain, and of course I'm inspired by the cultures, and I'm not saying this in a sort of xenophobic slant, but I think but that's just how I've spent my life. I don't know, because I've noticed the value in it, and I became a druid. I was initiated into Druidry, not to recreate the past, not to become like an ancient druid type person. I was interested in it because it was a contemporary nature-based environmental spirituality. And
when was this? When were you introduced to it?
I think I first joined the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids in the winter of 96, 97, around that time. And before that, there were various other sort of smaller druidic groups that I was working in, but they didn't have at that time. They didn't have any proficient training, and there were covens, and I was trained in the craft and witchcraft as well. But again, they were quite small groups. And when I met the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids, it was this really creative, vibrant, heart-centered, wise tradition with elders that I respected, and had a spirit. It still has a spirit that is gorgeous and strong and ancient. You feel this big wealth of lore and learning and support from the spirits of the order and the lineage, which sort of goes back, through the Reformation, but also you sense that spiritual root going back as well through time. And so that was a wonderful discovery. And that's
what's the distinction between druids and bards?
So within this particular tradition, the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids, and the kind of mother orders of that order, because it grew out of other orders, there are 3 grades of initiation. So it's an initiatic tradition, which is unique in itself, isn't it? You don't find that often, initiatic traditions. And the first grade is the bardic grade. Okay. And a bard is someone that works with awen or the immersed. So these are old Celtic words. That is that flowing spirit of creative power, omniscient poetic force that kind of flows through all things. And the ovate grade is the second grade, and that's more of the kind of healer, witchy, shamanic, kind of deeper, darker, meatier, furrier, leafier grade, if you like, where it's sort of the grade of rupture and repair, if you like, where your whole life can sort of turn to chaos and you can just go back to the forge and be reborn out the other end, or the cauldron. It's just the grade of the mother and the goddess, and you're sort of tempered in that sort of feminine force, and then you sort of come out of the end of the ovate grade. And you don't have to go to the druid grade, you don't have to go to the ovate grade, but there's a progression. You can't become an ovate unless you've done the bardic work. You do the ovate work, and if you want to, you go into the druid grade, which is more about being in the world, in the eye of the sun, in community, being a priestess, being a priest, being a celebrant. And when you work through all the sort of druid teachings, and then
who sets the standards and allows you to progress within that?
Well, you do. Okay, I guess
I do.
Self.
Wow. Okay.
Self progression. You have lessons. They're called gwers. which relates to the word gueres, which means a ray of sunlight. And you work through them, and what you put into it is what you get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
The course is designed so you could go through the bardic grade in a year. You get a package of guers, these little booklets with some meditations to do, some practical work to do, and then these rituals to do, and teaching about the wheel of the year, and you go through an elemental sort of alchemic process. And in the bardic grade you have a tutor that you can write to, and then at the end of the grade you do submit a review, and then so you are kind of then, if that's accepted, then you're offered the ovate grade, and then through the ovate grade you have a tutor that you write to, correspond with.
Mm-hmm. Are there lots of kind of organisations within the Druid in the UK?
Yes, this is an international order, the Order of Bards. There are many Druid orders throughout the world, and this is, I would say, the biggest and the healthiest of all of them. And there are, and you could become an initiate and never have to meet another Druid. You could do it sort of personally at home, just as a hobby, if you like. But most people, seek community and seek other people to work with, whether it's at a stone circle or a local hill fort or in someone's house. You would normally, most people would find their local grove of Druids. So that's the name for a group, a coven, if you like, and or seed groups, which are smaller groves. Mm-hmm. And then there are camps and gatherings that happen in Britain and Europe and America and Australia, New Zealand, and it's quite Celtic flavour. So there are people of many different colours within the Druid tradition, but mostly they have a Celtic ancestry. But some, of course, some in a wonderfully blended society, we all have so many different ancestors, and but there is a sort of Celtic racial bias, I suppose, from people that are attracted towards Druidry. Sure. They've generally got some Celtic ancestry somewhere along the line, but there's a great acceptance of belief in all paths and all traditions and all creeds and colours and faiths and sexualities and modes of being. Essentially, there's an equality about it. Is
that what attracted you? Is that what attracted you mostly?
What attracted me mostly was an environmental spirituality.
Yeah,
I had a pagan heart, and I still have, and I'd grown up in the woods, and it was sexy as well. So there was that element of being trained in the craft and witchcraft. It's quite erotic. There's a kind of and a healthy expression of one's sexuality within these traditions. And adherence to that being sacred. And as one sees the landscape as sacred, one sees the world and nature as sacred. One's also, that's within as well as within. So you see one's own body and one's own nature as being sacred, and so that was quite attractive as a sort of young, lusty man. Sort of, oh yeah, this is sacred. Look at all these lovely sacred people doing these wonderfully creative things, and that sense of like the world is highly mechanized, and I was sort of growing up within the art world, and my art was speaking about nature, speaking about life and death and sex and everything in between, and speaking about environmental causes. And after I left art college, I was offered like an MA at Chelsea, and I just didn't want to go. I just thought I was sort of disillusioned with the art world. Just thought it's just money spinning, navel gazing, artists in their studios, and people might wander around and look at their art, drinking wine for an evening, and that's it. What difference does it make in the world? And I kind of came out of that and wanted to do something really physical and really. So I did a bit of art, and then I went travelling and got involved in environmental projects and conservation projects, and
have you seen a rise of
yeah,
people, maybe my generation, getting more of an interest in shamanic traditions? And has there been
that's really refreshing. It's great to see and support what was happening when I was a young man. You know, there was a lot of young people getting involved in paganism.
Sure.
And then I noticed that there weren't very many, and now there are more. You know, and I think it's things like Medicine Festival and
podcasts,
possibly podcasts, and but more it's a human experience of festivals and ceremonies and pilgrimages and people meeting in groups, doing magical, ceremonial, sacred things, and finding community through that. And people have maybe gone travelling and seeking something,
sure,
and found spirit in other places because they've been disillusioned with the sort of Western corporate capitalist ethic or whatever, you know, and then come back and realise, actually it's all here anyway. And
you just described my journey,
and the Druids are just going, yeah, here we are. You know, you know, that's one of my axes to grind as well. You see sort of, you know.
Yeah.
Well-respected, you know, elders sort of saying, you know, we need to get in touch with our indigenous traditions again. There's all, you know, there's all these sort of druids and Wiccans and witches and sorcerers in the back and go, excuse me, you know, we've been doing this most of our lives. Catch up, you know.
Well, yeah, I went off travelling after university and in search of something that I thought was out there, you know.
Yeah.
But it was in me, and coming back and seeing the land in a very different way, seeing the sky in a different way. And I was like, was it always like this? And I remember thinking travelling 2 years on the road just allowed the spaciousness to allow my heart to open, essentially, and just to witness and observe my reality inside and out. And I remember thinking when I was travelling, I was like, was the sky always like this, or is it just here? And then coming back home and it being the same, and I was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
But it was that, and then now I'm like, it's not anywhere else. It's happening right underneath your feet, you know.
Yeah, and that may not have happened if you hadn't gone travelling, you know? But it could have happened if you went to Wales or something, or just or Southend on Sea, or, you know, or something. Could have happened, couldn't it? I suppose, but yeah. So that's something, and I guess there's a certain guilt. Do I feel a bit of guilt about it? You know, because because of so many people in this country that are displaced or have displaced heritage, or whose ancestors aren't necessarily Celtic or even Anglo-Saxon, you know. So I do every now and again just have a slight guilt about that. I've got this connection to this land, and I can, you know, I can really feel some pride about that and deepen into the landscape and the traditions and the stories of this land, and then sort of think, but here I am stood in a circle, and that's, you know, everything has a shadow, you know, and inspiration can become blinking. You know, you can be inspired by something, and you can not necessarily a zealot, but you can become completely inspired in what's good for you. You are. So the trick is to kind of find your truth and act upon it, but then be sensitive, you know, to everyone else who's going to have a different one, you know, and it comes from a different place. And so that's sort of where I'm at the moment. I tend to be, you know, when I'm out doing outreach projects everywhere, involved in things, I'm sort of in circles of people that are British, but have very mixed heritage, and I feel like, it's not just about me finding my roots and feeling really good about that, because that's something that connects me to nature and the natural rhythms and the folklore and the culture here. It's also about you know, honouring your ancestors wherever they might be from. You know, of course, honouring the spirits of place and the flora and the fauna here, and the folklore here, and the stories and the wisdom traditions that have grown out of this place that we inhabit. But bring yours too. You know, they're wonderful.
Connected to a lineage, how can that really change things for you? Because it's something that I hear a lot, and I'm curious to find out your kind of view of how that can really help you even connect to yourself a little bit more, like connecting to a lineage and just finding one that feels good, you know, like what's the what the kind of impacts of that for people.
I mean, here's a lineage. You know, this Norway spruce.
There you go.
There's a lineage in itself, isn't it? They've been a Norway spruce for however long, and before that it was some kind of other kind of spruce, and before, you know, but they're ancient. They're these trees that have this, like, they're wind-blown pollinators. Been around for a long time, before flowers, before nectar, before honeybees. These ancient trees with cones, and the trees with catkins.
Where were these grown?
Savernake Forest, just over the downs there. So there it is. It doesn't have to be cultural lineage, and that's the real leveler. That's where we're all here together as people in a natural environment. And the round table is a lovely analogy, isn't it? You know, and we're all on this round table, and we might sometimes the art. The humbling art is to be able to sit at the round table with someone who has a completely different and conflicting point of view to you, and but how to sit there and still share the meal, you know, and offer the cup, and know that you might never agree on stuff.
I don't think it's about agreeing, is it? It's about meeting someone where they're at. And bringing your presence to that, and that's a part of this podcast as well. It's like, how can we disagree and in a healthy way and bring back that aspect of life?
And if this wasn't a podcast, it would be a colloquy amongst a hall full of people, or a meadow full of people, or a church full of people, or whatever it might be, wouldn't it? I mean, these are tools. These are communication tools. This is a communication tool, and it's stopping us from knowing.
Depends how you see it.
It's allowing us to know each other and to, you know, spiritually masturbate and have nice chats about stuff. But my kids are over there, not sat on my knee having a cuddle. You know, your family over there. You know, the person who sold the kids the bread this morning, the walk they went to the shop, is over there, and who knows who made these clothes are wearing.
They're still going to be there after the podcast.
Yeah,
we can still invite them to the table.
My dad made this table.
Did he?
My great grandfather made these chairs. I built this house. My deceased friend Nick, this was his rug. So I don't know, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that there's that the abstract sort of technology, even books abstract us, and podcasts and books are made by and written by people that have slightly remembered how to live, I'd say, and are read and watched by people who've half forgotten how to, you know. And I'd say that, you know, actually, you know how to live.
I agree. Yeah, this isn't about telling people who they should be or what they should do. It's just an invitation, or even a modelling of, like, how do I want to live? How do I want to have conversations? And then just be that. And then, as you know, as a father, it's as a byproduct of living your truth. It impacts those around you, those you love. And you want to model something that you want to preach with yourself, preach with your body, preach with what you wear, what you eat, you know, not what you say. Saying, you know, words are kind of cheap, really, aren't they? As you've alluded to a few times. It's in action, it's in what we do, it's in how we're living. So yeah, appreciate you coming on the podcast, brother. We can resume life as we.
No, I enjoy it. I do enjoy it. You know, like the attention, of course, you know, and feel valued somehow that you've asked me to be here, and you know, all those things.
Thank you, man. Do you want to leave anything with the audience, or any places you want to point people to, gatherings, or what you're doing this year? Or what are you a part of?
What, to plug anything?
Invite people to.
Just pick, I don't know, you know, that musical instrument you've always thought about learning. You know, just do it. And you know, if you're into gaming or podcast listening or whatever it is, you know, instead of doing that, you could pick up the musical instrument and just learn another tune.
I want to cut out this bit.
Huh?
So we'll get cut out this bit. Keep listening to the podcast. Now, I want people to do what they want to do, you know, and I think that's a great invitation.
That's, I mean, and then again, get into the garden, grow some stuff.
Yeah.
Grow some stuff, you know.
Beautiful.
In a pot or in a garden or in your friend's allotment, or it could be, and write a poem. When was the last time you wrote a poem? With a pen, you know, and a piece of paper.
Still a technology.
Yeah, or just conjure a poem and start speaking one, you know.
That's the one,
get together, start a little coven or a little group of people that meet once a week, or, you know, to get together and just sit around that fire or that candle indoors and don't record it, turn it into a podcast. Don't even take a photograph of it and put it on your social media account. Just be with it and understand the trees. I mean, or if you have to go online, go to www.druidry.org and learn strategies to then stay offline, you know, and become. If you're interested in Druidry or native British wisdom traditions, if you're slightest bit interested in bards and druids and ovates and witches and wizards and the sort of native British ways, then you couldn't go far wrong by getting involved in the order of bards, ovates and druids. Highly vouched for that group. And then from that could be, you know, then be a departure point to immerse yourself and become versed in other ways and traditions of these isles.
Beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did you want to share anything, a song or maybe a story or anything that comes to mind?
I've got a child tugging at my...
Yeah, you can get involved. Say hey.
Do you want to sing a song? Should we sing a song?
Do you want to sing a song?
You can.
What should we sing? Here we are. It's early January. There's a song I used to sing you when you were going to sleep. Do you remember about an owl? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It's a bit of a dirge.
A dirge.
It's a bit of a dirge. It's a bit dirgy, but do you remember it?
Is it Wise Old Owl?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that one.
Do you want to sing it with me? Or something else? Or should we sing that song we were singing the other night that goes with the dance? We could do that call and response one. So here's a song.
I'll respond.
A friend, George, and Ben, we were sat on Ben's sofa one night, and George said, "Let's write a song." I said, "Okay, what should we do?" He said, "Well, how about we go around the elements or the directions or something like that?" And I thought, "Oh yeah, I know this old Breton tune that I've been learning." And so we put these words to this old Breton tune, and it's a call and response, and it sort of goes round the circle of the directions and the elements and the seasons sort of 3 times. I could sing it and you could sing it back to me.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Should we do it? Should I get a guitar? Should I get a guitar as well?
Yeah, let's go for it.
I can get it now.
Maybe just shift the mic a little closer.
Yeah. So there's a song that goes around the elements and the seasons, and it's like casts a sort of tridentate sphere of magic around us and connects us to nature, I guess, a bit. Ready? So I'll sing it and you do like call and response.
My voice.
Might be good for your voice.
It makes it sound pretty cool.
I can try.
Chris will sing it back to us.
I'll sing it back to you.
Yeah.
And it's set to an old Breton tune. And it actually goes with a dance as well called a Antidro. It's nice to sing and dance together.
Do the dance.
East where the birds are calling,
East where the birds are calling,
south is the longest light,
south is the longest light,
west where the stars are falling,
west where the stars are falling,
north is our mother night,
north is our mother night.
East where the birds are calling.
East where the birds are calling.
South is the longest light.
South is the longest light.
West where the stars are falling.
West where the stars are falling.
North is our mother night.
North is our mother night.
East where the birds are calling.
East where the birds are calling.
South is the longest light.
South is the longest light.
West where the stars are falling.
West where the stars are falling.
North is our mother night.
North is our mother night.
Spring and the seeds are sown.
Spring and the seeds are
Summer is far and wide.
Summer is far and wide.
Autumn the harvest home.
Autumn the harvest sown.
Winter our fireside.
Winter our fireside.
Spring and the seeds are sown.
Spring and the seeds are sown.
Summer is far and wide.
Summer is far and wide.
Autumn the harvest home.
Autumn the harvest home.
Winter our fireside.
Winter our fireside.
Springtime seeds are sown.
Springtime seeds are sown.
Summer is far and wide.
Summer is far and wide.
Autumn the harvest home.
Autumn the harvest home.
Winter our fireside.
Winter our fireside.
Breath of life is flowing.
The fireside.
Fueling the fire within.
Fueling the fire within.
The lake of the heart is full.
Lake of the heart is full.
When in rhythm with the earth we sing.
In the rhythm of the earth we sing.
Breath of life is flowing.
Breath of life is flowing.
Fueling the fire within.
Fueling the fire within.
The lake of the heart is full.
Lake of the heart is full.
When in rhythm with the earth we sing.
In the rhythm of the earth we sing.
East where the birds are calling.
East where the birds are calling.
South is the longest light.
South is the longest light.
West where the stars are falling.
West where the stars are falling.
North is our mother night.
North is our mother.